Hey, what's up, players? Shikata and I are back again, and today we're going to do Intel Bytes episode 3, and this one's going to be talking about Tor and the dark web. Ooh. In this particular case, we're going to go over some stuff for this Intel Bytes series that relate to things like cyber threat intel and privacy and, general hacking goodness, as it were. So the first video in the series, we talked about how to do a little more private-oriented Firefox browser settings. And then the second one, we got into some VPN talk as well. So this one, we're going to talk about Tor. So there is some anonymity that can be given with Tor. And as we talked about in the previous video with the VPN, there is a little bit of hiding of our location and IP with that particular one as well. So there is a little bit of a difference, and sometimes you can actually combine the two for kind of the best of both worlds, if you will. So in this particular case here, let's start off talking about what is Tor in general. So when you think of Tor, this originally was created, I believe, by the United States Navy, and it was meant to be an anonymity, I don't know how you say it, or just anonymous communication, I believe, with just the military for different things that they were doing. And the Tor project is the one that currently runs the Tor nodes, as it were. And what they are is they're a series of computers that are out there, and they're all publicly known as far as their IP address, and they're volunteer computers in most cases, right? They all set it up here. It's a volunteer network, and the idea is to make an anonymized network, I guess. Better word would be maybe decentralized. In this particular case, as opposed to a VPN, which is more centralized. And with Tor, if we're thinking about it in simple terms, let's say that you were trying to get to a website, chucknorris.com, and you did not want any prying eyes like your ISP or government entities or whoever scoping in on trying to figure out where the request came from. What's the source IP? Because when you send a packet, there is different information in the packet itself that gives identifying information about where it's come from and where it's going. So we want to kind of hide that portion so nobody can really see what we're doing. Now with the VPN, we can hide the IP address of where our traffic originates so that they can't tie it to us, essentially. When you're using Tor, the idea is that you have what's called a Tor browser on your computer. So you would download this Tor browser, and then from there, whenever you do a request out to chucknorris.com, angelinajolie.com, what have you, then it will actually encrypt the packet and send it to a node that's in that Tor network. So the Tor browser is set up in a way that has all of these different nodes that are listed. And let's pretend there's 3 nodes altogether. Now, again, there can be way more in traversing your packet to where it needs to go, but let's just pretend there's 3. So you have an entry node, and that's where your packet comes from your computer and goes into the first Tor node, and it's in an encrypted format. And let's pretend that it's encrypting it 3 times. Okay, that's I guess an easy way to kind of explain it. So when it gets to that first node, it will rip away the first layer of encryption and send it to another one called a relay. So another node in the network, okay? When it reaches that node, it doesn't know the destination, nor does the first node know the destination of the packet because it's under 3 layers of encryption. When it gets to the second node, it will rip away the second layer of encryption, and it will then send it to something they call an exit node. And that exit node will be the one that's right before where it sends it out to the actual source address. How does it know where it's going? Because it now controls and undecrypts, if you will, tears away that last layer of encryption, and it's seeing the actual destination address. And then it will send it out, and it will connect to whatever it needs to be. That is Tor. So nobody really knows. Everybody knows that there's a packet coming, but they don't know where it originally had come from, per se, the other Tor nodes. And the conspiracies that you hear, and they're not necessarily conspiracies, there are truth to them, that the government owns some of those exit nodes because they're trying to inspect different packets. And it's not just government entities. There's other entities, maybe criminal enterprises, that are inspecting those exit nodes. And if there's any kind of personal information that can be tracked back to you. Let's say the packet contains information that includes your name or an email address or something like that that can be traced back to you. They can then correlate that with the packet itself and then understand, okay, this came from so-and-so. So being careful about what you actually have in there, the packet itself, is key to this anonymity thing. In the case of that, some people would say, okay, well, we have complete anonymity. And that's actually a myth in that case there, because you have to actually get to the first Tor node to begin with. And to do that, you have to leave your computer from wherever your location is to get to that node, and the ISP can monitor the traffic, or the government or whoever else that has, that's monitoring your network, can see the IP address is yours and is going to a Tor network. Now, it doesn't know what you're doing through that Tor network, and it doesn't know necessarily where it's going, but it knows you're using Tor. Now, in and of itself, Tor is not illegal, but there is some illegal activity that can happen with Tor, and does happen. So a lot of companies and even a lot of websites that you're trying to go to may block that actual packet or that request based on the fact that it matches it against a known list of IP addresses that are Tor nodes. If it says, this is coming from an IP address of a Tor node, they know it's coming from Tor. And therefore, they'll either block it, or if it's in case of the ISP or the government, they may say, this is really suspicious. Let's start surveilling, this cat right here, because we know he's using Tor. We don't know what he's using it for, but obviously, if they're using Tor, they must be criminals, right? That's their mindset, it appears. And that's why it is an option that you can use a VPN over Tor. In this case here, there are some that offer that out of the box, like NordVPN is the one I use, and they do offer an onion over Tor routing option. So what you could do is, if you're using the Tor browser on your computer, on your local network, you could essentially connect to the VPN first, then connect from Tor browser to the first node. And what will happen is the actual IP address that appears to be going to the first entry node is the one that's the VPN address. So therefore, your ISP and all government entities or whoever's watching you are not going to be able to tie it back to you wherever your location is. And the same thing goes for the exit node. Again, your IP address appears to be somewhere different than what it really is. So they can't really tie it to you. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, where you have your encryption and your security, and you also have some anonymity and some privacy. So if you want to go that route, sure, you can do that. There is some slowness there, because Tor in and of itself is pretty slow, because it does have to go through those different nodes to get the packet to where it needs to be. And then you tack on top of that the VPN that it has to connect to. Now you have a pretty slow connection. So if you're not going to be doing any streaming video or large downloads or anything like that using this, but it is an option for you. So consider using that VPN before you actually get to Tor. Now you're probably thinking, well, so what does Tor got to do with anything? What is this whole connection of networked things? What does that do for me? Well, there's some terms that get kicked around, and they try to make them all sexy, and they call them ClearNet, Deep Web, and Dark Web. Those are typically the words they give it. And when I used to teach the ethical hacking classes that I did back in the day, I'd always ask the students during this discussion, I'd say, if you were going to use Google and search in, anything on the internet, what percentage of information from the internet do you think you could find using Google? And of course, people's minds, they automatically think Google, the all seeing eye of Sauron, and they immediately say like 100% or 80% or 50%. But in reality, the Google engine itself would only search what's indexed. Okay, so the indexable internet is what they call the ClearNet, and it's only really 4% of the actual full internet. So the 96 some odd percent that's left over is what they consider the deep web, and then there's pockets of it that, such as Tor, with this different network of nodes that they have in it, where they call it a dark web. So the deep web, you can kind of easy way to think about it is deep web would be anything that you essentially have to authenticate to or something that's not indexed. So if I go to a website and I have to put in credentials and log in, that's something that's not going to be indexed by Google bots or anything like that. So it's not an indexable site. That would be considered deep web. Okay. So that would be the majority of the different sites that you're going to. So it kind of blows people's minds when they hear that and they think, wow, all this time I've been searching just the 4% of the internet. I'm missing out on so much good stuff. Well, sure. But in this particular case, we're going to talk a little bit more about the inner portion called dark web. And dark nets essentially are a variety of different dark webs that are combined. In this particular case, when you think about that layered approach and you think about Tor, what if you never leave the exit node? So I mentioned before the way you would traverse a normal search would be going into the entry node, going to a relay, and then going to an exit node, going out to the search, to the destination. Well, what if you never leave that? Now, out there on the regular ClearNet, you have your top-level domains like .com, .net, .org. So those are pretty common, right? Inside Tor, in that network of nodes, there's also a top-level domain. It's called .onion. And it's meant to reference Tor as being many layers, hence the name onion. So the symbol that they have is like, an onion. That's essentially what it is. It's talking about the many layers of encryption that it does to a packet to get it to pass through the different nodes. So if that's the case, and there's this .onion, is this where the dark web is? Well, in this case, they have something they call hidden services. So take this as an example. If I had my computer, if I made a server, and on that server, I was hosting spy plane schematics or something illegal like that. And I only told my buddy Chuck Norris, and I said, hey, listen, I have this on this computer. If you want it, this is my IP address. The only two people that know my IP address and where the server is me and Chuck Norris. Think of that on a little bit larger scale, where you have kind of a peer-to-peer type of connection where you have all these different hidden services, if you will, that are kind of hidden behind these weird long URLs that are not really legible as far as like words, like real words from the dictionary, and then ended in .onion. These would make up the different servers that are part of this Tor network. And they're not all dark web. For instance, Facebook itself has its own .onion hidden service server. DuckDuckGo does. Some of your news organizations have servers in the deep web, in the Tor network, in the .onion. So they're not all bad, but there's a very large portion that are hosting things like where you can buy illegal firearms or cocaine or PayPal cards or anything like that. That's also being done within this hidden services section. Now you're probably thinking, well, obviously they're going to be hidden in there and they're anonymous. So if that's the case, then how do we get all these takedowns of like Silk Road and all these different alpha markets that are out there that we see on the news that the government takes down? Well, that comes down to what they call bad OPSEC, operational security, where think of it in this aspect. If I was hosting bad content, illegal content on my server, but I didn't actually harden my web server, and there was some exploits in the server software I was using to host that page, if a bad guy were to exploit that vulnerability and actually break into my server, they now know the true IP address of that computer, and they could report it again, like to the officials or authorities or whoever. And essentially, they can come take it down because they now have found this hidden service with this illegal content on it. So when you do bad OPSEC, that means you're not following good cover your butt practices, essentially, in this case here. And that was the case with something like with Silk Road and a couple other ones that you've seen take down. Now, do keep in mind there are some like government officials and entities that will also host their own hidden services to entrap anybody, to entice bad guys to come to them and try to find or track whoever's coming. Because sometimes the people that themselves go visit these different sites are not being very smart either. And they're like buying the stuff and it's being sent directly to their home address instead of like a PO box or the crack house down the street or something. That is also considered a way that they can find that sort of thing out. And they keep trying to de-anonymize users in Tor. But the fact is, everybody uses Tor. Law enforcement uses Tor. Investigators, PI investigators, sources for news outlets, they all use Tor for anonymity. So, I mean, everybody uses it. But, the government wants to always find out what you're doing and poke and prod and all this other garbage. So, that's the intent. They want to kind of sneakily do that. Now, do also keep in mind that the browser being used to connect to Tor also is just a modified version of Firefox. So it does have its own security vulnerabilities at times. And it did have that a little while back where there was an exploit for that. And it was found out when all the leak dumps came out and they found out that they were using an exploit. The NSA was using an exploit in Firefox to try to de-anonymize different people on there. So in and of itself, the software is not, completely hardened, but it is the most hardened, I guess you could say, out of all of them. And we're going to dip into how some of that works. Now, I'm going to switch over to my screen here. And what I'm using in this case here is software called Tails. And like I mentioned before, you could essentially just download the Tor browser onto Windows, Mac, Linux, Android, whatever. It's called Orbot on Android. You could essentially download it on there and have a go at it. But if you wanted to really be private and anonymized in some cases, you could essentially use this Tails distribution. And what it would do is you download this entire distribution and put it on a USB stick. So at my house, I have this on a USB stick, and on my laptop, I plug it in and I boot to the USB. What'll happen is Tails won't interact with my OS that's underlying, right? So I have an Ubuntu on my laptop. It's not interacting with that. And once I'm done, it's running most of this, like I said, in memory. So once it's done and you're finished using Tails and you shut down the computer and take the USB out, you'll notice when it's shutting down, if you read some of the things that are going on, it's actually clearing out and removing any traces that you were ever here on this laptop. So that's what's pretty cool about it, is you can use this with pretty much any laptop that will accept USB boot or DVD or whatever. And you have a complete operating system. And I'm currently in it in a virtual machine just to demonstrate for this video. But like I said, you can use this as your own on your own laptop. Now, if you were going to decide to do the option I mentioned before with the VPN, before you connect to Tails and you do it that route, now you're going to have to do a little bit more tricky stuff. Either you'll have to set up a mobile hotspot and set up your VPN through that, right, first, or you'll set up your VPN to work on the network level at your router level and then connect to Tails through that. So you could do it, but it's a little bit more work. For this, I'm not worried about connecting to a VPN. And I'm simulating Tails here, but I'm not doing it through my laptop. It is just on a virtual machine. So when you get Tails and it opens up, this is all it is. It's nothing really crazy. And you'll see up here, it's got a lot of different things. It's got the Tor browser. And you also have some mail clients. You have KeyPass. So if you had some credentials or a database you want to use for your credentials. And if you look here, it's even got like a version of the alternative to Microsoft Office, LibreOffice. So you got a full Office suite there. And excuse me, some programming stuff and video and audio. It's a basic operating system, right? And it's all running within the in memory. In this case here, it's running as a virtual machine. As soon as you connect to it, it will connect you to Tor. Then you can bring up your Tor browser, and you're basically in. Now, in this particular case, I can do a Tor check like this. I can click this Tor check, and it will tell me if I'm indeed connected to Tor. So it says here you are, and this is my address. In reality, this is actually not my real address, right? And to go even further, if you recall from my VPN video, I said it's always important to also do a DNS leak test because you have some stupid garbage ISPs out there that like to do something called transparent proxying, and they should all be thrown in jail for doing that. This particular case, there are some out there that will say, we're going to force you, even though you may set OpenDNS or whatever you have for DNS, we're going to force you to go through our DNS server no matter what. That way they can monitor and log the traffic you're doing. Therefore, you're not anonymous. So you need to always check to make sure this extra step to say, hey, am I really, anonymous? So what I always do is I do a DNSleaktest.com just to verify that I'm actually not leaking DNS information. Here we don't even see any type of image of where we're actually from, but if we do a standard test, it may take a little bit. Like I said, this is a little slower here in Tails, but the goal is, okay, see like right here, Netherlands. So I'm not in Netherlands, I can tell you that. So, but it appears as if I am. Now, if this were to show your ISPs listed here, then you would be assured that your DNS is leaking, and they're probably using transparent proxies, which is, you can also get information about it by clicking on this right here, where it talks about, right here, it says, you may be surprised to find out that they're using transparent DNS proxying, and that's the ISP's DNS server where they're forcing you to it. So ridiculous. Hate it. Hate it. So in that case, always do a DNS leak test just to verify, okay? All right, so now we get that out of the way. Now, because I went and did that check Tor site, it actually went somewhere, right? I mean, we actually connected somewhere. If you look up here on the top right of Tails, there's something that says Open Onion Circuits. Let's go ahead and do that. And then when we do, it will open up something here. So notice here, it's going to load here. It's going to take a minute to load. Notice where it says like the first one here, then a comma, then it has another name, then a comma, then another name. This is essentially the machines that it connected to actually do the request that you wanted to do. In my case, doing the check Tor. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that up for a second, and I'm going to come back here, and we'll go ahead and do, let's do DNS leak test again. Oops. So we'll say DNSleaktest.com. Okay, so it's going and browsing there. Let's go ahead and bring up our onion circuits again, and you'll notice right there is the actual destination is DNSleaktest.com. This tells me that DTF node 45 was the entry node. Then Bathysphere 3 was one of the relays, and then 177 DUS exit relay was the exit node. So it gives you information, and as you can see, these IP addresses are publicly known. Now, an aside to this, let me go ahead and mention this as well. If you are concerned that putting your traffic through a volunteered computer node that you don't know anything about, and you don't know if they're tracking or capturing any of your data that's passing through, even though it's encrypted. If you're concerned about that at all, and you're also concerned that websites or ISPs or whoever are going to see that you're using Tor nodes because you decided you didn't want to use VPN, there is another option called a bridge, okay? In this case, these are private servers that are not publicly listed. Now, if they are, then I wouldn't use them because it kind of defeats the purpose. The intent here is that if you get on some dark web forums and you get an alias on there and you start, becoming part of the community, and all of a sudden now you got all these elite script kiddies banging on your door saying, "Oh, you're pretty awesome. I seen you posting on the forum and you want to join our group. We're all about fight the power, blah, blah, blah." And they say, "But we're not going to use the regular Tor stuff, but we do have a private relay, a private bridge that you can connect to connect to the actual Tor network." That is one other option as well. So if you can find private bridges or set one up your own, that's another option to do as well. But this shows you essentially these are all publicly known, and that's how these ISPs and everybody else will say, "Hey, you're using Tor. We don't know what you're using it for, but you must be a criminal." All right. So the first thing you do when you get inside the dark web or the deep web, we'll call it, because we haven't really done any type of darkness stuff yet, is looking for a search engine. Now, before I get into this, I want to give a little disclaimer here that the things I'll show you here, I am not recommended that you go to any of these, and I don't recommend that you join anything or buy anything from any of these dark net markets. And I don't recommend you use this for any type of evil business. If you do, get out. We don't play that here. We don't care. We don't want you on this channel. In this particular case, I'm showing you this because if you're a cyber threat intelligence analyst, for instance, and your company says, hey, we are concerned that there may be a breach database out there and that an attacker may be selling information about us that they hacked us with, and they're selling it on the dark net or dark web. Can you please check some of the dark web forums and this and that to see if our name's bantered around anywhere in any of the forums or any of the Intel repositories? That's a good use for using the dark web, where you can go on there and you can start searching for that stuff to see if you are in there or if your breach database is in there and that kind of thing. So there are good uses of it. And also, to get that intel, a lot of times you'll have to join different dark web forums. And to do that, it's not always an easy thing like you would see in a normal forum where you just click and sign up and you're good to go. A lot of times you need to kind of be invited in some of them. And also there's some like the Dread forums where you have to do these insane captchas, which aren't your typical Google click the bicycle, click the crosswalk garbage. It's some real crazy kind of captchas. If you can get through all of those, you're good to go to get on that Dread forum. In that particular case, you'll have to set up different aliases and all that kind of stuff. So it goes down a little bit of a rabbit hole. But what I'm saying is, I am not recommended that anybody participating in any dark web illegal content whatsoever. Okay, caveat done. So the first thing I would do is I would look for a deep web search engine. And you can look for this on the ClearNet. And I would use DuckDuckGo in this case here. It's the default search engine anyways for the Tor browser. So you start looking for deep web search engines. Now there's plenty of them out there, like Torch and Not Evil and Candy is another one, I think, and a few other ones. But the one that always seems to work is AMIA, this one. But how I got to that information there is I would go to, I don't know, let's just pick one here at random. We'll pick this first link here. And as you go down through it, you'll notice there's a few different ones that they give you. And on this one here, Not Evil is one. Now, you could essentially try to go to it. So I'll try to open this link in a new tab. More than likely, it's not going to open because a large majority of these do not. Oh, wow, that actually worked right off the bat. Incredible. Didn't realize that. So there we go. Let's try another one. Let's see here. Torch. Let's see if this one is available. So this one actually is not including the .onion address. So we actually have to put that in there. So we'll say .onion. And we'll see if this one allows us in. And watch it prove me wrong, right? Look at that. Okay, now this is interesting here. The domain has been migrated to Onion version 3. Now note the size of this address. And note the size of this address. So they have a new version, for those that want to know, called version 3, and they're pretty much defaulting to it. And if you don't have it, they typically won't work. So these are a lot longer, and they provide supposedly more security and privacy, which is where you'll see Onion version 3. It's a longer address. So we'll click that and see what happens and see if it actually brings up the Torch. Wow, it's proving me wrong. So apparently these are all working pretty well. Then you have the AMIA one, which is the one I'm currently on, which is the one I use the most. And then a few other ones down here you also have. And let me speak on this for a second. So Tor is not the only way to do deep web searching or dark nets. There's also something called I2P and Freenet and a couple other ones. So this is another way to do it. It's not the .onion stuff. It's not what you're doing with this particular one, I don't believe. But you can do I2P searching as well. So there's other ones like Candle Search Engine. These ones I don't really care for, and I don't ever really use it. Well, actually this one here is pretty popular. But anyways, I don't really use those. So these are all a variety of different ones, and I always crack up when I look at this. It reminds me of like the old Netscape Navigator GIF graphics on a page here, right? From back in 1990, whatever, with AOL. I've never actually used this Not Evil one. I may keep that one up. This Torch one, I don't ever really get much help with that. But let's go ahead and just look under AMIA, and we'll just look for, I don't know, let's look for onion links, so we can find other links because you want to start off by finding other links to other places. So we'll click on that and do a search. All right, so let's see here. Deep link, the safe onion links. Let's go ahead and open that up. And another one we can search for that you'll see sometimes referenced on videos or books is called the hidden wiki. But in that one in particular, it doesn't ever seem to be there. It doesn't even really seem to exist in one location. Nobody can actually tie down the real hidden wiki. As you can see, there's so many different ones. So, I mean, you can try going to any of these, but sometimes they're just not, there. They're not real. But this is another one here, and this one actually didn't really have much information, so don't really care about it. All right, so let's look at the deep link one here. Safe onion links, look at that. All right, so here we have all the onions. Then we got market, hacking, hosting, forums. Now, some of this information that you're going to see here may freak you out a little bit, so I'm just going to give you pre-warning. If you don't want to really find any of this kind of stuff, then you may want to turn off the video. Let's go to the market one first. We'll see what we got over here. All right, so we got some prepaid Visa MasterCards, cloned credit cards, some PayPals that have been hacked. Let's go ahead and see if this bad boy is working and see what happens. And I guess we just click that, right? See if anything comes up. And nothing came up. Okay, let's try it again. See if anything comes up. And on these particular ones, you're going to see a lot of usage of Bitcoin. Now, people have the weird misconception that Bitcoin is made to be anonymous. The concept behind Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is decentralization. That's kind of the main concept. We don't want governments and large entities like that managing our currency. So that's where this whole decentralized concept comes from with cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin is one of the more popular, and then you got Monero and a few other ones. But they'll deal with this Bitcoin stuff. But in reality, it's not that anonymous. I mean, you can pull up any search engine that you find on GitHub. There's some specialized search engines that are Python scripts where you can search people's wallets. So it's not anonymous in that instance. However, there are some services that you pay for that will be what they call tumbler services. And the idea is putting all the Bitcoin into this tumbler service along with 500,000 other people using the same service, throwing their Bitcoin in. Of course, keeping track of how much you actually have for your wallet. So when you need to pull 100 out or what have you, it knows to pull 100 out, but the actual Bitcoin coming to you can't really be traced to you originally. So your original Bitcoin, because it's just mixed in with a big pool of everybody else, right? And that's what they call a tumbler service. So a lot of times people will use and only say we're going to use Bitcoin. So let's take a look and see what they got for some products here. Oh, look at that. Visa prepaid, 4-digit PIN, code included. Balance is $3,100, and you can get it for $110. So this one's actually using US dollars, it looks like, instead of Bitcoin. So yeah, right there, you can go ahead and buy yourself a Visa prepaid card. Interesting stuff here. Some clone cards, PayPal transfers. Wow, interesting stuff. So yeah, this is where, I guess, essentially, this is where your black market will begin, is using these sort of things here. And as you go down through, here's some original Apple products, maybe stuff that may no longer be available just through the regular stores. Fixed football matches, that's a good one, right? Gifts and cards, here's some more quality credit card stores. And again, a lot of these may use Bitcoin. Let me see if I can find one that actually has some Bitcoin listed for it. I'll close that out there. Wow, I'm not finding too many that have actual Bitcoin one. That's kind of proving me wrong, but a lot of sites will have that where they use the Bitcoin one. Market shop, target market. Anyways, you get the idea. These are all, hacked credit cards, what they call card forums that will do it and stuff. You also have hacking where you can hire a hacker to do certain things. In this case here, hire the most advanced and trustable hackers on the darknet. So let's take a look at this one here and see what kind of good stuff we got on this bad boy here. All right, so the hacker community, let's see what they have here. They probably have some Netscape Navigator gifts too. Most advanced and trustable hackers of the darknet. So I guess this is where you come to hire. Okay, so let's see what the services are. Hacking web servers, computers and smartphones, malware development for any OS, social media hacking, change grades in schools and universities. How about a nice game of chess? Reminds me of war games, right? Getting private information from someone, exploits Trojans, rats, phishing. Wow, all kinds of good stuff here, man. So yeah, apparently this guy's available, I guess, if we want to go ahead and tap into that. So interesting hacker community there. Darknet pro hackers, professional hackers, Bitcoin generator, blah, 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 blah. Now, there's also some other ones that I've seen on here that are a lot more nefarious, like hire a hitman. So if you want to pay for a hitman to kill somebody, you would essentially put Bitcoin into a pool, and if they provide evidence of video or pictures of the actual person being dead, then it releases the Bitcoin to them. It kind of holds it like an escrow. And that was Assassination Market, I think was the name of one of them that was on there. Crazy stuff. Here's some ransomware as a service. Pretty good stuff there. Of course, you have your adults and social and communication and all kinds of cool stuff. Let's look at the, let's see what we have here. Let's look at blog or forums, actually. Forums would be a good one to look up. Let's see if we have any forums. Let's go back here for a second and see if we can find any forums, because that would be pretty interesting stuff. That would be kind of what you would use this for a lot of times. So let's look up some different forums. Here's some deep link forums. Let's go ahead and look at that. All right, so best forum to darknet. It's called Hard Forum. So in this particular case, in order to use and utilize these, obviously a lot of them you'll have to set up an account with some burner email address so they can't track it back. So this one, obviously you have to go ahead and register or log in to actually see anything. Wow, look at that. Hack-ins, murders, drugs, guns. This is where all the bad people are right here. So that's an example of one, but of course you'll have to log in and create a forum for that. And some people aren't built for this sort of thing, but there are some investigators out there that use this and they go ahead and do that. Now, there's also some companies out there that will create aliases and essentially become, I guess, agents in the dark web, and they'll get information. So if you are a company and you say, hey, I want to find out if our name is being bantered around or if there's any type of hack database that is being sold or bantered about on the forums, you could hire a company that does this sort of thing, and they would get the information using their nefarious methods, and they would then sell that information back to you. There is that. If you are planning to be the cyber threat intel person for your company, you could do it yourself. You wouldn't need to use one of those companies. You could just say, I'm going to go ahead and set up aliases and all that and start ingratiating myself into the forums and start, I guess you could say, friending people up, even though you don't want to, obviously, because a lot of them are pretty nasty people. But the intent is to, like a spy, right? I mean, you're essentially trying to get their trust so that they'll invite you to other groups and communities where they may actually be selling information about different companies, and then you can do a search there for your particular company as well. There are some other ones. So this one here, Hidden Answers. I don't believe you need a account to view this one. So let's take a look at this one here. This is more like almost like a wiki, I guess, I think. Oh, this one's down. No server or forwarder. Interesting. I was looking at this one earlier, and it says status up and running. Let's try it again. Maybe too many people on it in the evening time. Yeah, more than likely. 502, that's a server error, so more than likely too heavy a load. This one, though, I do know has a variety of different topics, like, how to disappear, how to hide a body, that kind of thing. And I don't believe you need a account to be able to view and read that stuff. So that would be something you can do. There's the Darknet Forum, which I believe is the same as that one. Torum is one. I don't believe you actually need an account for this one either. And this one has actually been around for a while, and I think it's been taken down a couple times, but let's see if it's back up and running again. In the evening time, this may be too much on it. Okay, there we go. So here we can see general discussion. This is a good one for you as a cyber threat intel, because you could essentially download breach databases. Now, there is a fine line there because investigators do it all the time, private investigators or law enforcement. So obviously it's not illegal, I guess, but it's still something that maybe they could come after you for or surveil you if they found that you had these. But in my opinion, if I wanted to find out if my company email address was in any type of leak, I don't know if I would trust putting that information in to a site that has them, other than maybe haveibeenpwned.com. That would be the only one I trust. But it'd be good to have these yourself on your own system, on your own hard drives, so that you can always reference these again. Now, a lot of times these particular database leaks will have the passwords and credentials and sensitive stuff hashed, and you can just go through and crack the hashes with whatever software you're using. Or there are actually some that you can download probably from here, where they actually have dehashed them, and then you can view that information. So this one here looks like there's some sort of database dump. I don't know what these are for, Mint, Choco, Mint, DVD, DB, or whatever. Essentially here you can see that you can download leaked databases. There's one in particular that's kicking around that if you do some searching for, it's called Compilation of Many Breaches. And what they've done is they've taken all these massive database breaches that have happened, they've compiled it into one indexable large file that you can go ahead and start searching. So that could be of use to you if you wanted to search for the email address of your company to see if anybody in your company may have been exposed. You don't need to see their password and stuff, because that brings up legality when it comes to privacy and things like that. But you could essentially see, have they been in there? The better way, or the more safer or legal way, would be just to enter their email address in haveibeenpwned.com, because Troy Hunt, who runs that, has the majority of these. And he actually contributes on Raid Forum, because Raid Forum is another one. And he does contribute on the ClearNet version of this. And let's take a look here. Yeah, Raid Forums. Here's the ClearNet version of it. So it doesn't actually... So if you go over here to leaks and databases, right there, it's probably best to go ahead and look at the officials, the official ones, because they've probably been vetted, as it were. But as you go down through these are like Facebook data leak here, 533 million records, We Heart It database, Twitter database, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And as you go down through these, I think I've seen Troy Hunt in here on a couple of these. Yeah, somewhere in here anyways. But you can download these from this particular form as well. It's a pretty popular one. And if you go back here again, and let's go back one. Actually, let's go back two. If you look here, this is the one I was talking about. See this right here? Dehashed combo list. So this is where you would get the combo list, the databases, the leaked databases that have been cracked. Now again, you could maybe just not trust any of these and not download them, but again, it's up to you. But as you go down through them here, like I don't know, Walmart, database walmart.com, 3.2 KK good records. So I guess you would just click on that and, oh, okay. So you would have to register on the forum to view the content for it. Interesting. But anyways, Raid Forums is another one. They do have an onion address, but again, you can also see it on ClearNet. So yeah, as you can see here, there's a lot of different leaked databases that you can get from this as well. So this forum's got quite a bit of stuff here. It looks like you get some ransomware as well. Selling top shelf marijuana. That doesn't sound like ransomware to me. Buy counterfeit bills, hire mercenaries, ecstasy pills, all kinds of crazy nonsense up in this bad boy here. Buy passport, credit cards, invoice processing, all kinds of good stuff. Some buying passports and identities, like born identity, right? Looks like card-in, and then we have doxing. This would be doxing information that you can actually buy and then use it for malicious purposes and that sort of thing. And looks like there's some educational and tutorials as well. So if you want to learn what the bad guy's doing, and that's actually kind of a serious thing, is that if you are an ethical hacker, you do have ethics, but you do want to find out exactly what they're using. And you don't want to watch some stupid script kiddie on YouTube saying, here, this is how I hack Facebook. And you want to actually see real or read real information about how bad guys are doing what they're doing and what tools they're using. This is a good way to find it, I guess, if you can get past all these stupid sell things, buy, verified, this and that. Yeah, this doesn't look like any tutorials to me. But anyways, either way, this is an example of one of the ones that you don't need necessarily just to view the information. It's called Torum. But this is the stuff that you would probably be interested in if you were a cyber threat intelligence analyst is looking at these sort of things. Truth board, what is that? It sounds like one of those conspiracy theories and, you know, all that kind of good stuff there. So kind of interesting to see what that's all about. General resources, black terrorism, red terrorism, and green terrorism. I don't know what that's all about. General current events, COVID-19, international politics. Okay. So this is like your big conspiracy theory sites and stuff like that. Probably getting their information from like WikiLeaks or whatever. But yeah, all kinds of good stuff. Now, this site is actually never up. I wish it was, because this is actually a great site, Intel Exchange. It never has come up for me, ever. So I wish I could find it again. I used to be able to get to that one. But anyways, yep, server not found. Yeah, no good. Anyways, that is how you would kind of navigate around using, you know, onion addresses or whatever. You would search. You would start off first by searching with AMIA. And then from there, you would actually start looking at these deep link forums or what have you. AMIA is the one that's probably used the most, I would say, in most cases. So that's the way I would use it there. So if you look up breaches, you can do that as well. It should give things like the compilation of many breaches. Look at that right off the bat, first one. So this one here, I've actually been looking for. So I'm curious if they actually have it for download. Password here, download. Oh, interesting. So yeah, this is the big one that just came out. 3.8 billion records of information. Pretty massive. Oh, this RockU 2021's actually pretty good as well. Something's wrong with the link. Okay. I probably won't download anything from this. I just don't necessarily trust it. But as you can see, a lot of different stuff for this. Happy blog. That sounds good, huh? So as you can see, crazy stuff going on here, huh? And this is essentially what you would do to browse around for Tor, using Tor, to get around things like the dark web and all that kind of good stuff there as well. And I would suggest, like I said, using it for education purposes and also using it if you're going to be like a cyber threat intel guy or girl and searching your company on any type of forums and such. But again, that would involve you having to get some burner emails, you know, anonymous emails and stuff, and setting up accounts and kind of becoming involved, because a lot of times if you're not actually active in the forum, they'll kick you anyway. So if you do join, if you do end up getting in and you're not active, you're not actively participating in conversation, they'll kick you out as well. So those are things to keep in mind when it comes to that. But this could be used for good, right? It could be used for bad, but we're hoping that you guys here watching this channel are ethical and you're only going to be using it for good or for research and this sort of thing here. So there is some good use of it. I do recommend using Tails if you're going to be going this route. But if you do want that extra bit of security involved in that, I do also recommend using the VPN, then Tor. All right, in that situation there. Because essentially you're going to be using Tor for browsing certain things. I don't think you're going to be using it for streaming video or even downloading, to be honest with you. I don't know if I would trust that as far as, you know, because it has to show a location where it's downloading to. I'm just not too keen on that, I guess, in this case here. But this is a great way to research things or do dark web monitoring. And you'll see that being offered by companies out there, like if you get a threat intelligence platform. I think, let's see, Anomaly and Threat Connect, I believe, have connectors to one. I just can't remember the name of it starts with an F, but I can't remember their name. But anyways, there is one particular one that's pretty popular that's being used, and you can use it to get indicators of compromise for dark web type of material. So it's, again, something you had to pay for, but pretty cool stuff. So I hope you enjoyed this Intel Bytez for Tor and for the dark web stuff. Hope we didn't freak you out too much with all the crazy nonsense that's going on here. But, you know, your eyes are open now, right? You can see exactly what's going on here. And you can see it's not that difficult for the average user to be able to get on here and do pretty much whatever and research whatever. But it is the majority of the internet, right, in this deep web area, not just the dark web, but just the deep web in general. So knowing that, I would suggest, again, using Tails or some way to keep yourself a little bit more anonymous when you're doing any searches for this. So I think I've covered most of the stuff that we need to cover with that. Bridges, I've talked about the VPN stuff. So I think we're pretty good to go. So hopefully I'll have some other cool Intel Bytez stuff coming up here shortly, some more privacy related things. and some OSINT is on the tap there for some more future videos for the Intel Bytes. And also check out my YouTube channel, because I also do some where I go to a CTF and I blast through it and I teach hacking techniques by using CTFs, capture the flags, and I call it pop, 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 another server drop. I also have a video series called Bounty Hunter Training, which is directed at doing web application security for bug bounty programs that you may be involved in. I have one called Don't Be a Tool series, where I go over different tools like Nmap and Burp Suite and all that kind of stuff. And I got this one, this Intel Bytes. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. Until next time, peace out, players.